And welcome to episode 13 of the New Generation Challenge podcast for season 40, the Challenge Battle of the Eras. We are your hosts. My name's Brett Parnell.
And I'm Titi Fernandez.
And we are glad to be getting this in. First of all, Titi, love the sweatshirt. Episode 13 of the challenge is a perfect week to say you're just back. I'm going to see Taylor tomorrow. So
Yeah, Brett got last minute tickets to see the Eras tour tomorrow, Saturday. So
I'm
by the
literally
time this goes
leaving.
up,
I'm doing this podcast now. I'm gonna do tribal council chat tonight and then get on a bus to Toronto right after that.
so exciting. Yeah, so everybody hopefully by the time this comes out, Brett would probably already be back
Yeah, I'll be
from the
back
Eras tour, so we'll have to hear all about it next week.
next week. Yeah, I guess it'll probably be 2 weeks because I don't know if you heard this. I heard that the challenge is taking a week off for American Thanksgiving.
Sorry. My dad texted me.
No
Oh, it
problem.
is?
Yeah, I think the next episode won't be until 2 weeks from now, from what I heard.
That's interesting. Where'd you see that at?
On one of the like challenge social like fan page social media things from someone saw it from MTV.
That's weird also because Thanksgiving is on
Thursday, I think.
it's on a Thursday, right? Yeah, so
I'm
I don't
gonna
know.
look
We'll
that
have to
up while
see.
we're here.
Yeah, that
Um,
is interesting. Um,
November, what, before we get into it, November 20th.
that's my birthday.
Oh, well, happy early birthday if we don't have an episode next week, but
Yeah,
hopefully we do.
that'd be a good birthday present, have a challenge episode.
That would be. All right, well, let's get into it. Who knows? Um, Definitely check your local TV listings to see when they come out. But let's start right after the elimination, and we kind of get the end result of what seems to be at first a fight between Michele and Josh, but really has probably more to do with Michelle's relationship with Bananas in the game at this point in time, and Josh's just constant obsession with playing the middle.
Yeah, we get back from elimination and we saw like in the pre or the recap and also just a reminder from last week that when Bananas was in elimination, Michelle got a little bit frustrated because he was cheering for Bananas, and by cheering for Bananas, it's pretty much cheering for her to be nominated as a target.
Exactly.
I've seen people have different opinions about this, and obviously we're both really big Michelle fans, so we might be a little bit biased. But I honestly
Not to
think,
say Johnny fans aren't biased by all.
yeah, I think that it's interesting that some people are thinking that she's wrong for saying or for cheering against or for she's wrong for telling Josh to not cheer for Bananas. And I like my opinion is if Bananas wins, Michelle is a target. So we kind of have that scene, and then we later see Kyland make a good point, which this is right after this, so we'll talk about that in a second. But I understand where her frustration's coming from.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, we don't see, well, like when you actually factor it in, it's a 90-minute episode. They're there for us. I'm pretty sure we saw that like Michelle left social media for like a few months, as did the whole cast at this point in time. Um, all the people that are still there were gone for the better part of probably over 2 months, just less than three. So if you actually boil it down to the fact that we see a lot of time used in dailies and in eliminations and in confessionals where you're seeing only one player, mathematically we're probably seeing what, like 30 seconds a day.
Something
So
along those lines, yeah.
maybe maybe a couple of minutes at the most, depending on how many days are in between episodes. And
Yeah,
that's
and
all for
also
production to do. They don't tell us like day X that they've been in this house the way that Survivor or Big Brother do.
yeah, and it also just depends on like the next thing that we'll talk about in a little bit is the Michelle Josh Bananas. Like that segment was pretty big.
Yeah,
So I'm sure if there were other segments that week or in that amount of time, they chose the biggest one. So we also don't see exactly what is happening every single day, and they kind of pick and choose the biggest things to show. So But then we see Cara kind of talk about this was before the Michelle versus Josh versus Bananas. And they're kind of making fun of the angels and their foot
Yep.
activities, which I thought was funny. I don't know if the main producer, has like a foot fetish or something, but the amount of feet that we saw and the
In
foot
this
talk,
episode.
yeah, it was pretty insane.
Yeah, exactly. Um, all I was gonna add though too is that because we see, I guess you would say, so little of the show, it's hard to tell of like exactly what went on before between all of these players and therefore what's actually going on in the house, who has who's been getting along with who's been arguing with who's just maybe people who do get along in their day-to-day life but are just dealing with the pressure of, I mean, I remember during lockdown how pissed off I was not to be able to go outside and walk around at some points in time. And they do that for 3 months on end for the sole purpose of being on a show. And worse, you have to live with all the same people season after season after season. So there's bound to be times when you just don't want to see somebody that you're living with. I mean, I've been there in college.
Yeah, and I think this is a great segment or segue for some people that aren't getting along that we
Yeah.
do get to see, which is the Michelle versus Josh versus Bananas. And we kind of see Bananas stirring the pot by saying, Michelle, I heard that you didn't want Josh, or you got mad at Josh for cheering for me. And then it kind of, so again, Bananas is the one that throws the match in the fire. And we see Michelle and Josh kind of have like a back and forth, Bananas jumping in periodically. And this is all happening while Derek is trying to teach Michelle how to cook. So I thought it was so funny they would go from yelling and then she would go back to Derek like, "Oh, what do I do next?" So I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, that
Um,
was.
we see an appearance from Banana's angry veins on his neck that always catch me off guard because the guy has so much Botox on his face that he has no facial expressions. So the only thing that can move in his like head when he's angry are the veins in his neck.
Yeah.
So what did you think about that exchange between those two or
Yeah.
those three, I guess?
Yeah, that was certainly a noteworthy exchange. Especially going into what we're going to see after the daily and how you just kind of at the beginning of this episode just know that everybody is close to the end of the game. I'm sure, like we often see this season, Bananas talk about his dad and Michelle talk about her brother and um, Olivia talk about being in a relationship with Theo, and now they've been split up because Theo's eliminated from the game last week. And it's just like you can almost just tell at this point that no matter what's going on, all of these people just want to go back to their real lives.
Yeah, and I think the tensions have just hit it's just hit like a boiling point at the moment. I think like I know me personally, when I'm fed up and annoyed, like the smallest little thing can send me over the edge. And I feel like that's where all these people are. They're just at a point where if one thing happens, they're gonna explode, they're gonna blow up. And we saw that from Josh saying, like, I am so sick of your shit or something like that, or whatever he was saying. Michelle getting mad. I loved when she was like telling him to shush by clapping. But yeah, I empathize with Michelle in this situation, and I think it again just shows like how messy Josh's gameplay is. And Kylan, I think, really hit the nail on the head when he was talking about this. He said, Josh, you can be friends with everybody, but you cannot be allies with everybody.
Yeah,
And I think that's something that Josh has a hard time understanding.
absolutely. And that's the thing. I'm sure if you actually broke it down, as we've kind of seen online, like we don't really see in the show, say, Rachel and Michelle having many interactions, but we do see Rachel on social media talk about how much of a badass competitor Michelle is. And you can tell that she has, and in confessionals, even in the season, that you can tell that they have respect for each other and probably get along, but we just don't see it because it doesn't add to the storyline.
Yeah, and I think also everybody in the game for the most part, or not for the most part, some situations, like I've seen Jordan talk about this, how they can all go from like arguing, being against each other in the game, and then when they're not doing something game related, like if they have an off day or whatever, they can go back to talking and they can have fun with each other. So again, even though we don't see a relationship between Rachel and Michelle because it's probably not important to the storyline and there's other important factors to it, I think that they both have a mutual respect for each other as competitors.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say the same probably with the exception of like Cara and Laurel, and maybe Bananas is starting to push some people in this way at the moment. Um, it probably goes that way for the vast majority of people in this game.
Yeah. And I don't really have anything else on this if you're ready to move
No,
on
yeah,
to
I'm
something else.
absolutely ready to move on to the daily. We see a very fun competition where we once again get that competition we tend to see every season where they're finding pieces located through a dugout trench. In this case, it's naturally the number 40 for season 40. And then at the end of running through that mud and finding their pieces, the players have to complete a 3D puzzle, which oddly enough is the same pyramid puzzle in Survivor 40, but I think they've put it into 6 pieces this time instead of 4 pieces like it was on Survivor. But one thing I had to go back and look at after, since David Wright basically pre-studied this and did it in 5 seconds in Survivor 38, Edge of Extinction, they actually did not use it in Winners at War. So Michelle's never done this puzzle before.
Yeah, and I have one of those little, it's like a it's a puzzle that you buy and it's like pieces like that
Mm.
basically, and there's different like puzzles that you can make with it, and I will say I'm usually pretty good at puzzles. This one is a lot harder than a normal two-dimensional puzzle. um but yeah, the daily was called 40-yard dash, which I thought was kind of funny because the trenches are basically shaped in a 40 shape, and they have like a 40-yard dash is a popular track event. So I thought that was pretty funny. This is not a challenge I would want to compete in because that mud just looked awful. Because it's not just about can you run and grab a puzzle. Like we saw people losing their shoes and like getting stuck in the mud. So I don't know about you, but this is not something I would want to be in the hot Vietnam summer.
Yeah, I'm kind of mixed on this. I can totally see your point that especially in the Vietnam weather, I would not want to do this. I am just someone who, though, has visited some of these more historic trenches that you'll see in Europe, and just the idea of like them running through this is probably the closest experience you can get, especially with this week being November 11th, to what people in the First World War went through, that I thought that would be something I would like to try.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't think of it like that, like you said about the historical significance. But I am okay with learning about history by reading it. I would not want to experience it.
Fair.
But during the daily, we see Jenny and Rachel working together, which I don't even know how much of an advantage this gave them. Did
Um,
you see
I
anything there?
I don't think it gives them necessarily a broader advantage in the game if they can solve work if it works out. I think that the goal was to try to make sure that one of them win, or just they essentially just want to make sure that neither Michelle, Olivia, or Cara win the challenge because they're all targets.
Because we saw them running together to get each piece. So, and they're like, oh, it's amazing to see two strong women working together.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, I don't even think like it doesn't really matter if you run together or run separately because I think was it Jenny who finished first or was it Rachel? I don't think it,
I'm not sure between the two. Cara won.
but they destroyed their puzzle after they
Yeah.
were done. So it's like I don't even know what they were getting at there.
Uh, my guess is, and it's hard to say without being there, but I think the one advantage that it could have is if they work together, two minds are better than one in remembering where you've been to and where you still need to go.
Interesting. Yeah, I think that's exactly what it was.
All right. So moving on next, we see Michelle have a 1 minute time penalty to start that TJ gives them. Um, Normally, and I mean, we talked about this last week with Theo that we say these kind of things don't mean that much. Theo got a 2 minute time penalty in a mini final, and Michelle got 1 minute in what was just picking up a few puzzle pieces and um, building a puzzle. It seems
But
like she got a far worse disadvantage to me than was done earlier in the season.
that's exactly what I was gonna say because Theo's time penalty, it it mattered. You can say it mattered, but at the end of the day, it just was who's digging in the right spot and who's finding the keys in the right spot. And that's a lot different than getting a 1 minute, like those people having a head start over something that requires, like, you're not sitting around and trying to dig to find something because I think the digging just made it like a huge equalizer for the mini final. And here she had 1 minute less than everybody else in the game. And I think that was a huge factor in her getting last place because we saw her and Aviv were neck and neck.
Yeah,
So if Michelle would have started the puzzle a minute before she did, there's a good chance she probably would have figured it out.
yeah, exactly. Hard to say when you're not there, but I would argue that odds are it would have been at least even closer than it was, but probably Aviv would have been last. And that wouldn't have necessarily made a big difference because we still would have got a deliberation between Michelle and Olivia, which I mean, at this point, I'm almost kind of glad as a fan of both of them and as someone who's met both of them that we didn't have to watch that. But it would have probably sent Aviv into elimination, and who knows what would have happened with a different player there, and
See, I
with
think it would have
possibly one of Johnny's allies going home as opposed to two best friends fighting it out.
I think that it I don't think it would have sent Aviv into elimination because we know Jordan is working with the Angels.
If Aviv's last, she's automatically the
Oh, interesting, interesting. Yeah. So it probably would have been Michelle going into elimination anyways,
yeah.
because I think Jordan is closer with Olivia than Michelle at this
Mm,
point. But we see that Olivia, or we talked about Cara, she ended up winning, but Jordan had a really good win here. Him and Kylan were the top for the males, and Olivia really surprised me this challenge because we've known Olivia to be somebody who has a lot of physical strength,
yeah.
but we haven't known her to be somebody that does is we haven't known her to be like a puzzle master, kind of like somebody like Michelle. And this challenge, and I think the one before, the memory game, she did really good, and
Yeah, she
she's
did.
kind of shown that she she's no slouch in puzzles. So I thought that was really good to see. And I did feel really bad for her because if Cara wouldn't have won, Olivia would have won.
Yeah.
So yeah. Um, do you have anything else on the daily?
Not really. I think we covered everything, at least until they're on their way home from the deli and we get fireworks again.
You want to start talking about that?
Yeah, so once again, we just see the player. Well, I mean, not once again. We rarely ever. You'd have to almost go back to like what Dirty 30 or something to see bus content. Normally, they just show us a bus moving, and it's like great. It's the same thing all the time.
If we even get that.
Yeah, if we even get that exactly. Um, they're on their way home from the challenge, and once again, we just see Bananas constantly irritating all the girls that are part of Tori's alliance and doing what he does best, which is just being annoying and not going away.
Yeah, so Bananas and Aviv are having a foot party or something. They're just touching each other, playing with each other's feet. And Michelle, and she says this in her own words, she knew what she was doing.
Yeah,
She was trying to give Johnny a taste of his own medicine. And
exactly.
at this point, she knows her back is against the wall.
It
her
was
and
like I
her
told
best friend are
I
automatically going into elimination. And she was like, you know what? I'm gonna get a rise out of him. I'm gonna do the exact same thing that he does to me. And she says, can my feet join the party?
it was like I was telling a friend of mine at this point that basically all that really happens here is that Michelle just decides to put on the bananas role for a few minutes of the game, and who says bananas is the only one who can't try to make the other players annoyed.
And I have a lot of thoughts about this. Bananas blows this up into something that it really wasn't,
Yeah,
because he says that Michelle is taking low blows at Aviv when she never, like, if Michelle would have said, like, oh, does your husband know that you're playing footsie with Johnny? Okay, maybe that would be something that is a low blow. But I think her saying that is not taking low blows at Aviv.
yeah, I didn't. I can see how if Aviv took it wrong, I see where Michelle's comments come from later in the season or later in the episode, where she has that one-on-one to apologize to Aviv. Obviously, I think if I look at this cast quickly, I have the cast list here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, Aviv and Rachel are the only two people that are married on this season so far, or that are still left in the game. So I'm sure the way that Michelle probably thought about it was like she's a single, well, a dating girl now, was single before they came into the house. Johnny is recently broken up with Mariah, and they're just young single people joking around the way that young single people do.
Mm-hmm.
And it probably was perceived wrong. Okay, that's fine, they'll move on. But Bananas has to do the same thing as he always does, as we were just saying, and make it into something far bigger than it is.
And in my opinion, if like I've always been of the belief that if you know what you're doing is wrong, it's your fault for doing it.
Yeah,
And like I'm sure if Michelle was there playing footsies with Bananas now, like this day when they're dating and boyfriend girlfriend, he would probably be like, "What the fuck?" You know?
yeah,
And or if Devin was playing footsies with Amanda, like Michelle would be like, "What the fuck?"
yeah,
And I think they're trying to almost like villainize her by calling something out, but in my opinion, you are the one who's doing the wrong thing. Her saying, "Can my feet join the party?" Even if she did not think of this as a low blow to a V or anything. I think she
no,
just wanted to talk, like,
egg on
pick on
Bananas.
Johnny. Exactly. And Johnny blew it up again, like we've talked about, and he just kind of starts taking really low blows at Michelle.
And I think we're still in a, going back a few episodes, but still in the exact same situation where I don't even think that Johnny is necessarily that angry with Michelle. Johnny doesn't like Michelle's new significant other. And we've known that for many, many seasons at this point in time. Only when they were forced to work together did it ever work out in 38.
And another good point, and Devin mentioned this on his live that he did with Jordan,
Oh, I missed
but
that.
I think Jordan saved it on his
Oh,
profile, so you
nice.
can go back and watch that.
I'll watch it
But
on the bus
Devin
tonight.
gave Johnny $38,000.
Yeah,
The last time they played together, like if anything, you like if somebody gave you $38,000 that they did not have to give you, I mean, I don't know why he even started that between them because I just think that's kind of disrespectful.
yeah,
I don't know.
absolutely. No, you're 100% right. I'll have to watch that. I didn't see it, but from what you're saying, could not agree more.
And also, I really love this moment when Cara and Olivia start standing up for Michelle
Yeah,
against Johnny. Olivia did a little bit later on, but we saw Cara like right away when he started being rude to her. She starts coming in, and I think Cara is almost like, and Michelle talked about this later on, like even though they went against each other in 39, Michelle eliminated her. Michelle and Cara are very similar
yeah,
people. in their personality, in the way, like, in Cara, we see Cara play her best when her back is against the wall.
And in
What
this
is Michelle
season,
doing right
and
now?
exactly. And in this season and past seasons, we also see that, like you say, even though they went against each other, and I mean, Kara was a mercenary in 39 when they went against each other. It's not like she was really part of that game or knew anything of what was going on. But not only are they similar in their own way that they play the game, but Michelle and Kara also in different seasons have had the same similar adversaries that just seem to try to kick them while they're down season after season after season, whether it be Johnny or be Loyal.
Yeah, and it also makes me think of Cara and free agents going into the ring like one week after another week after another
Yep.
week. And obviously, we'll talk about this later on, but Michelle has now won 3 eliminations in season 40 alone, and
Yep.
she's gone in there more than anybody else. So I don't know. I think I really love seeing their friendship with each other. And I love how, even though they kind of came in with not a rivalry, but some tension, because obviously, if you're a champion coming in to win or to do good in elimination, it probably kind of sucks when you get beaten by somebody.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I just love that they kind of went past that and they're able to work together in this game.
And I mean, I can almost say you're right. Michelle won 3 eliminations. She effectively won 4 because she went head to head against Loyal to see who goes home.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So then moving on from there, we get into the bar scene. And we have a
Wait,
few. Oh, did I miss something?
just uh no, never mind. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong thing.
Sorry.
No, that was my fault. I thought we missed the Aviv and Michelle talk, but I think that's after.
Yeah, that's what I thought. But we see a few things going on here. The first I wanted to talk about is Corey's position in the game and different alliances he's making. I don't know about you, but Corey has to be the player that's left after Nehemiah's gone home that you're just like, wait, he's still on this season?
Yeah, I think beginning of the season, Corey was way more loud.
Yeah,
And I think it's also because he was able to kind of hide it behind his era. And we see that Michelle is kind of explaining to Corey, like, I'm kind of in a tough spot right now because Jordan cannot be a target.
yeah.
And I thought
Which
it
is
was
unfortunate because Jordan is the one person you want to be a target here solely to send bananas out of this game.
at 100%. Um, but we see like Corey, and this kind of reminds me of Corey in other seasons. I feel like Corey, I don't know if the, and I think this has to be his fault, but every time he's in an alliance, he's kind of like the lowest man on the totem pole.
Yeah,
And it reminds me of like other seasons seeing him how they'll protect him, but when the numbers are getting low, I feel like he's kind of the first to be taken off if they have to take somebody out. And I thought it was interesting that, and I think the reason why I think this is definitely just because of his fault, because he said like Michelle and I, like, we haven't like talked that much, or was it Michelle? No, him and Cara. He was like, we have never talked any game. And for Cara to say you're my number one right now, like, it just makes me think like, Corey, you need to start putting in more work into your conversations, into your relationships with people, because we know that even though you have like the Vacation Alliance, who's strong and they're always going to protect each other, a lot of alliances are built by just people spending so much time together. And another perfect example of this was Michelle and Olivia's relationship with Naya, because we saw like they did not know each other prior to the season, and
yeah,
they became very strong alliance members
yeah,
before her departure.
absolutely. And then moving next, we see you make a do you you probably want to go into this because you made a comment in your notes, but a kind of bizarre comment from Jenny.
Yeah, I do not like Jenny. I I liked her on World of Worlds 2. I
Yeah,
liked her on Total Madness, but this season, like, it I don't know, and obviously we know she doesn't have a good social game, but she's
She's the
coming.
player that's, I think, like you're saying, I liked her before on her past two seasons too, and she's just disappointing me more than anyone on this cast. Not because she's not great physically and is absolutely a challenger to win this game, but she just doesn't. I almost get the sense, and this might just be just me, but that she's almost not playing, and maybe cat despite people questioning it before, maybe this is what casting could have been picking up on as to why she hasn't came back since she won, despite people clamoring for her. And maybe she's just not the most interesting TV and tends to blame other people instead of playing the game that they really wish she was bringing to the screen.
And I think that, and we've seen Cara talk about this. I know Michelle's talked about this, but all with the exception of her, most people on this cast, they make their impressions and they decide whether or not they like somebody based off of their own personal experiences with
Yeah,
that person. Jenny is just hearing what Banana says and then he's taking it out against her and saying bad, like mean things to her. But
yeah.
she, like her making that comment of, well, Olivia hasn't been mean to me, but Michelle, like they're basically saying, I like Olivia because she has more integrity than Michelle. But it's like, when has Michelle not had integrity this whole season?
And I'm almost wondering now when you say it that way, and that makes so much sense, that I'm going back to what Michelle said on a podcast after Spies, Lies, and Allies, I think it was. Maybe it was Ride or Dies, one of the two. But I'm almost wondering if maybe there's just this preconception of Survivor players, and Jenny's decided something in her mind that isn't actually real.
100%. And
Because we get that a lot from real world and road rules players, and I know Jenny is not either one of them because she's British, but that just people from both of those two shows kind of come into the challenge thinking this is our show. We're here mostly to party like we've been doing since we were 20 on television to entertain everybody. And we don't like these people that come in playing a game that's more like chess onto the challenge.
yeah, and I think this is something that I feel like a lot of people say, like, or I've seen people say, like, Michelle's a snake, blah, blah, blah. Like, one thing what you cannot say about Michelle is that she she has so much integrity, and we have seen this from the start of this game.
Yeah.
Her and Kyland, obviously on season 39, did not like they were not working together, but we know that prior to season 40, they kind of had this set agreement of Kyland is my number one.
Yeah.
And even when Kyland had to send in Michelle against or into elimination, she has stood by the fact that Kylan is her number one. On 39, Jay was her number one. She stood by that.
Yep.
And just because she has such a good social game and just people just gravitate towards her, she has always made it known the fact that these are the people that are my top. Yes, I'm protecting you, as in Corey. Yes, I'm going to protect you before Jordan. But if Jordan's out of the question, like these
Sorry.
are, oh, you're fine. Like she's very clear on who she's working with, who she protects. And I don't think you can say that she's not playing with integrity because she could have, after Kylan sent her into elimination, she could have came back and said, or gone against Kylan.
Yeah.
And she didn't.
Yeah, absolutely. One other thing that I wanted to say on the Jenny topic here, just because of what you say about how Bananas is just feeding her information the whole time. I mean, I know he's in like the Orlando area, I think, but what happened in Miami? I thought Jenny and Tori were pre-gaming together months, like right before they left for like 3, 4 weeks.
Yeah, and I think Tori, and it just goes to show because she is a beast, you know?
Yeah,
Like I don't think any of those girls want to see her in elimination. And I think that's why Tori is like the only person who's really coming after Tori is Bananas.
yeah,
And because and I think this is another I think there's a flaw in this game because like the girls have no say whether or not the girl goes into elimination. And I think it it kind of made it like more lackluster than what it needs to be. I think it would be more interesting to see, to force someone like Tori to kind of draw the line in the sand when, like, when you have something like a house vote versus the last place, or house vote versus the target or whatever.
Yeah.
It makes everybody show their colors, and I think Tori is in a position where she's working with Rachel because, and she's working with all those girls because she doesn't really have to show who she's more loyal to,
Yeah.
because it doesn't really matter.
Right. And speaking of Tori, I just want to wrap up this segment with a conversation on the Tori and Michele interaction that we see at the bar. I just love this. I love how they've become a alliance in this season. How Devin is both Michelle's girlfriend and Tori's ride or die, and that's linked the two of them to play the game together, especially after how the two of them, certainly with the relationship as big names coming into the show, had a bit of a rocky start on Spies, Lies, and Allies when Emmanuel went home, who was Michelle's showmance at that time, who became Tori's showmance like 2 episodes later. But now they all seem to be in such a great position, and the Michelle and Tori and Devin are all so close as a friend group, let alone Michelle and Devin's relationship outside of that, that um, to see them working together and to see Tori focus so much on Michelle's well-being in the game at this point in time, I thought was great television.
Yeah, I absolutely love that moment. And another thing to add to that is when we saw, this was a deleted scene that got posted, but when Michelle and Devin had a drunk argument, which obviously we know they are good.
Yeah,
Um when
you
Tori
can
was
laugh at
talking,
those kind of things months later when you know that it's all behind them.
and it was something that, like, this is way different than what Bananas did to Michelle. You know, they were
Yeah,
just having an argument. But we saw when Tori was talking to Devin about it, she was validating his feelings. And I think Tori is probably like a very good friend to have, not just in the game, but outside of the
yeah,
game. Like, you can really see how much she cares about her friends, and she's so good at like talking to people and comforting them and like letting them know, like her telling Michelle, like, your back is against the wall, like, think of step A and then we'll think about the rest. And she just also like validated Michelle's feelings, and also like told her, like, you're a badass, you're like, you can do this, you know,
yeah.
how are we going to get you to win this elimination? But before we move on to after the club, I just had one more thing.
Sure, go ahead.
Josh, when, because Josh knows he's going to be a target, and I'm surprised he didn't make more of a scene of that. But he says, like, you know what? I'm not scared of going into the sand, blah, blah, blah. Does he not remember his elimination record? Is he forgetting all the other times? The only time that he won was against that dumb guy. I don't even remember his name. He literally didn't even, he didn't, that rookie didn't even know where he was. And
Yeah,
that elimination, Josh did not do good on. Like, if it was anybody else down there, Josh would have been going home. Josh, you have a 1-6 elimination record,
yeah.
something like that. You need to stay away from the sand.
Especially amongst this competition.
Absolutely.
There is no chance of Josh coming out of it if he gets into elimination. So,
After the club, this was when I
I mean, there's
accidentally
so much.
stopped you.
Oh, sorry. There's so much back and forth and him being indecisive that I would kind of like to just see Josh go against Jordan and get an end to this. But
I think Josh is somebody that he, I don't even know how to explain it. He's probably one of the more uncoordinated people on
yeah,
that's ever been on the challenge. Like, I it's kind of reminding me of some of Theo's performances. It's like, you have the tools to do good in this, but you can't put the pieces together
yeah,
and solve it. I don't know. Like, because we've seen him, like, it's not like he doesn't have endurance. It's not like he can't run. It's not like, well, I mean, apparently he's strong, but he's also been beaten in a tug of war against a guy with one arm who probably weighs 50 pounds less than him. So again, I don't know, but he needs to stay away from that.
yeah, absolutely.
After the club, we see Michele, Aviv, and Olivia kind of hash out the problem. Michele apologizes that that Aviv got caught in the middle of her and Banana's argument,
Yep.
and Aviv kind of clears it up, but she does say like that was a personal dig at me. And I don't know, again, I don't think it was never Michele's intention to take a personal dig at Aviv, and
Yeah.
again, my thought process stays the same that Michele, what she did was not a personal dig. If you don't want your husband to know that you're touching feet with another guy, then don't do it in the first
Yeah,
place.
exactly. And also, if you don't want to get caught in the middle of arguments, don't ally with Johnny Bananas.
Exactly.
Because he is magnetic for starting drama amongst everybody in every house that he's ever lived in, whether it be here in House of Villains, in the Traitors.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. Anything you want to add before we get into elimination?
Um, just we see a little bit more from I don't know if I have a note on this, but Michele and Corey talking. Michele kind of says she doesn't have her mind made up, and Corey kind of explaining that she's his number one. And we already talked about Corey. I don't even know how his alliance works, but I think he needs to maybe see Wes before he does another season and trying to get some tips from him
Yeah,
so
that
that
would
he
be
doesn't
actually
always
very smart.
end up at the bottom of people's list.
Yeah. So moving into elimination, we see a DNA strand shaped ladder that players have to build following a three-word puzzle with the pieces that they find at the top. And we get a completely different approach to this. Olivia is just going to use her endurance and her skills
Strength.
to strength. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. To trial and error pieces and climb up and get those puzzle pieces as quickly as she can. Michele, on the other hand, I think very intelligently decides to figure out which like to order her pieces in size. The big advantage to this, at least that I thought, is that then if she misses a piece by like say half an inch, she can know, okay, which piece looks about how long I missed it by, grab that one, not just grab another piece and try to find where it goes.
Yeah, I was trying to think about this because obviously we saw Olivia kind of had a big head start
Yeah.
when she got to the puzzle. I was trying to think which strategy was better. I I can see both sides, but I do think maybe Olivia had the better strategy as
Mm.
just kind of building as she goes. Because if a piece doesn't fit, you don't have to, and I think there's probably a rule about the fact that you can't like just bring all your pieces right
Yeah, they said you can
under
bring
you.
two pieces at once,
Yeah. So I think maybe,
adding an endurance component into this.
yeah, I think maybe this Olivia's strategy of just kind of grabbing a couple and then finding somewhere that they fit would make it so that Michele or like make it so she doesn't have to or go back to her pieces
Yeah.
every time.
I guess the challenge with that is that finding somewhere that they fit is great if you're able to reach that point, because you of course have to climb up your ladder. So some of them will go higher in the ladder that you have to finish the bottom first.
Yeah, and we saw Olivia being able to, because she could still climb it even if she
Yeah.
didn't have all the pieces. So I think that's where maybe the strategy helped her.
I mean, I'm sure
But
TJ would not allow you to, but I could theoretically climb it without the pieces.
yeah, I don't
Just
know.
up on the outside.
Um, but yeah, we saw a different strategy there. We saw Olivia kind of get to the word puzzle and she is struggling. She's not she has another strategy or different strategy here, which I think Michele had the better strategy. Um Olivia just kind of lays all her pieces on the mat or on the table, I guess. And Michele lays hers on the floor so she can look at all the letters separated from the three letters that were already on the board.
Yeah.
And we know Michele is a crossword expert. So
Yes.
she was able to pull it out really fast and figure out the puzzle which led her to win.
Absolutely. It was the best spot for like a second um comeback for a comeback from Michelle because this really fit into her strength, as you and I know, and it also fit into something that Olivia says she's just not good at.
Yeah,
So it was a
100%.
mismatch once we got to the second part of the puzzle.
And I did like this elimination because it wasn't like, again, we had an endurance component, we also had a mind puzzle component, and also like a strength component because climbing up there, reaching things. So I liked how this elimination kind of brought a lot of things, and it required you to not just be good at one portion, but be good at the whole thing. And I really, really appreciate that both of these girls came into the ring and gave it their all. I think when like we saw the hall brawl between Olivia and Nerys, Olivia didn't want to hurt Nerys, you know.
Yeah.
We saw her, she could have, if she was against when she was angry, like with Raven when we saw her, she would have gone in a lot harder. But I appreciated both of these girls just giving it their all and just kind of
Imagine if they
understanding.
gave us that challenge last season.
Yeah.
Might not
Um,
have ended well.
but they both just gave it their all and they both realized like even though I love you, we're both here fighting and we're gonna give it our all and the best girl is gonna come out of this and they're gonna continue in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that at the end that it instantly, when it's over, cuts to confessional of Olivia at this point ready to go home. Or as I said, ready to go to some five-star resort in Bali with Theo and Naya. But um telling Michelle that I can't wait to see you again once you're a champion of this game, even though she
Yeah.
just sent her home. I'm like, I've socialized with both of them in the same room on two different occasions, and that sums up what everybody will get from the relationship between Michelle and Olivia when you see are with them together in real life.
Yeah. They've said that they're sisters and you
Yeah,
can just see how strong and how deep their bond is, which I just love to see from those girls.
absolutely. And then we get targets. I mean, I think we've pretty much already revealed this without saying it, but no surprise, Bananas is a target. Josh is a target, no surprise there. Corey Michelle picks over Derek to be a target. We've seen, um, like you say, Corey's spot is just kind of there. Whereas, as Michelle said in the show, Derek and Olivia live in the same neighborhood and are each other's like two of each other's best friends in real life. So she wasn't gonna send her best friend home and then put one of her best friend, like one of Olivia's best friends, into elimination the next week.
And we also saw, we talked about this last week that based off of Q&As, lives, we've seen that the show has not really shown Michelle and Derek's friendship. And we even heard Corey say, like, Michelle, sorry, I don't do crossword puzzles with you or something. So I think now that we do know that they are very close, I think the edit was making it seem more like Michelle betrayed Corey in a way, but in reality, like we saw Derek and Michelle cooking together. We haven't seen Corey and Michelle hanging out as friends
Yeah,
as much. So I don't think it was just based off the Olivia factor. I think it was also based off that they have grown into a friendship and she spends more time with Derek than she does with Corey.
yeah, absolutely.
Moving on to player of the week, we have I realized when you sent me your notes, we had picked the same people.
I mean,
So
there's no way to avoid it, at least in my view. They
yeah,
were both clearly a step above and beyond everybody else in this game. And of course, for men, that's Jordan. For women, that's Michelle.
yeah. For me, for Jordan, I saw I feel like we've seen kind of Jordan hiding in the shadows because he just came off a win. He's a four-time champion. And this game we've seen during the dailies, it doesn't look like Jordan is in his mode that he turns on when he needs to turn it on. in this daily, we saw Jordan just kind of showing us why he's a four-time champion.
Yeah.
And he
And I think that was
performed so
intentional
well.
from Jordan now that he knows we're in the final six, but he didn't want to, and smartly so, didn't want to be in that spot that everybody is like, must take every shot to get rid of Jordan, hoping that on one of them he'll eventually find a skill that he just can't do in the arena.
Yeah, and he knew that like with the targets that were going into elimination, those girls would have picked him as a target if they like whenever they went into elimination. And not only is Jordan not a target for the next challenge, but he also didn't even have to make a choice. He didn't even have to draw a line in the sand and choose between which girl is going into elimination. So I think this was a stellar performance from Jordan. Got pretty lucky with the lack of deliberation, and I think it just has to go to him.
Yeah. And then for our last place player of the week, we
Oh,
have
do you want to talk about Michele a little
Oh yeah.
bit? Sorry. um,
Winning the elimination, even though
standing up
she,
for herself. I
yeah,
think that was
absolutely
huge.
standing up for herself against Bananas. Even though she came last in the daily, she had a disadvantage that she couldn't control, probably when it came last, and would have made a comeback if she didn't have that minute penalty. And I don't know about you, but I almost thought that it looked close. This looks so close across like so many people that who knows, you to add a minute to Michelle's time, maybe she comes like third or fourth.
Yeah, you never know. And I think also
Because I'm
when
pretty sure that it looked like all of Cara clearly won the challenge, but it looked like second through seventh was just like one person after the next. TJ blowing the horn, beep beep beep.
and another factor here is it depends where your station is.
Yeah,
Because if you're standing right next to Cara, when you see that she's almost done putting her last piece, you can take a glance and be like, blue goes here, red goes here,
yeah.
whatever. And like we said, like
That's a
Michele,
great point. They were different colors in this season, unlike in Survivor where they're all the same.
yeah.
I never
Yeah, I
noticed that
have
until
one of
now,
I'm
but you're
telling you, I
right.
have one of those puzzles that you make shapes with or whatever,
Mm,
and the different colors have different um like amount of beads and the way that they go. So it's kind of hard to do.
interesting.
But yeah, again, Michele, stellar performance in the elimination. And I just love how she is standing up for herself and giving Johnny a taste of his own medicine, and
Yeah,
hopefully um he stops being an asshole.
yeah, hopefully. Um, at least we know, and at least she knows at this point that they're probably about 2 weeks from her getting to go back to Kim and Joe and not deal with these people.
And Devin.
Yeah,
Loser of the week. I had Bananas because of his reaction to the bus fight. He escalated it in a way that it didn't need to be escalated. And if he truly cared about like Aviv not looking bad for playing footsies, then he wouldn't have blown it up as much as he did.
yeah,
Like he could have said like, "No, Michele, this is an angel only party," or something like that.
yeah,
And yeah, so his reaction in turning it into Michele taking a low blow when I think you are the one at fault for doing that.
yeah, absolutely. I agree with you there, but I did give a different name. I put Corey in the spot this week. And the reason I did that was it just seemed to me like instead of, and maybe he is, and we're just not seeing it, who knows? But it almost seemed like Corey is now that he knows next week he has a disadvantage in the challenge, trying to play the game all of the sudden at the final six instead of having any social game going back to the beginning of the season.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I didn't even think of it like that, but you're 100% right. Sorry. My dog's in here for the audio listeners that can't see. But yeah, Corey is in a spot where we see his lack of playing the game earlier in the season is now just turning into him being the lowest man on the totem pole, and it's kind of too little too late at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything you want to add before we wrap up for the week?
For my female, I
Oh
had
yeah, we did
um
not get to the female. What is my
you're
brain
just
doing?
forgetting about the woman today. I had
I
Aviv
think I'm
because
just ready to go see the most famous woman in the world tomorrow.
honestly, yeah, that's totally valid. But I had Aviv because of the way that she reacted to Michelle's comment and how she said, I'm taking this personal, blah, blah, blah. When, like, again, if you are the one who's doing that, and if you know that your husband at home is going to be like, what the fuck are you doing? Then don't do it. And
Yeah,
don't blame it on somebody who called it out. Blame it on yourself and Bananas for participating in the first place.
yeah,
Did
absolutely.
you had Aviv as well? Do you have anything to add to that?
That was the main thought that I had, exactly what you just said. Also, just that she didn't perform in the daily challenge at all and probably should have lost. So that was my secondary reason, but what you said was my primary reason.
Yeah, but I don't have anything else to add. I'm really excited for you tomorrow to go
Thanks.
see the best concert in the world with the best artists in the world. And we're gonna have to hear all about it next time we record, whether that's on next week or if it's the week after that.
Yeah, we'll find out, and I'll let you guys know on social media just so we clear this up for anybody listening.
Wait, no, Thanksgiving isn't next week.
Is it okay? So then, if it's not next week, then it's definitely
The
there's an
week
episode.
after. Yeah, we will be back hearing all about Brett's
See,
experience.
Thanksgiving for me was a month ago, so I'm I hear things online and go, oh, I guess it's this episode. I don't know.
Yeah, I forget that you guys have a different Thanksgiving,
Yeah,
which I don't know why they don't
what
just make it the same time.
what you guys call Columbus Day is what the British decided to call Thanksgiving up here.
I don't even think it's called Columbus Day anymore.
Probably not, but
I don't even know what it's called, but it's not Columbus Day anymore.
well, it's
Anyways,
Thanksgiving here.
thank you everybody for listening, and we will talk to you next week.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't wait to be back, but look for the episode on Sunday, and always feel free, if there's anything you guys want us to talk about, to send us any messages. Let us know what you would like to bring to the show, and we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, thank you for listening again, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.